How long does it take to code? That's the question we're going to go with today. So this is Chris with CodeChris.com, and one thing that I know everybody asks in the beginning is, how long will it take me to learn how to code? And that's a totally valid question. It's the same one I had. And really it just comes down, and I know it sounds so monotonous, like you've probably heard it a million times. Well, it just comes down to the individual and all this stuff. No, I'm gonna tell you flat out. It depends on the amount of time you have. So if you are working so let me give you an example for myself. So it comes down to a number of things. One, if you know exactly what you want to go into, that changes things. So if you know you want to go into app development, and that's it, then maybe you can get away with just going straight into learning app development. I would say it's going to be a little difficult because you'll be learning both how the app is set up graphically as well as how programming works. But the visual side of it isn't that difficult, and I think you can probably pick that up at a reasonable pace. The harder side is going to be the programming and knowing how it works through the app. So I would say if you want to go into like app development and you've got the time, go straight to app development immediately. What about you want to build websites? Okay, cool. Well, you know that you want to build websites, you can immediately jump into JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. You can immediately jump into it. Once again, I would still jump into JavaScript first, just because it's more complicated than HTML and CSS. But nonetheless, that is what you know you want to go into. I think the hardest part, and what really sort of fudges these numbers, is when you begin to learn how to program, or you decide that you want to learn how to code. Ultimately, you don't always necessarily know what direction it is you want to go into. So, me, for example, I know where I want to go in the direction of, but the issue I have is time. That's another limiting factor. So I want to eventually get into VR. Specifically VR for mobile development. I would like to do it with like the Oculus Rift or the Vive or something like that. The thing is that I don't necessarily know if that's really going to be what changes the world of VR. Because although it's awesome and great, and I think its application for the bigger scale things is going to be more along the lines of amusement parks, theme parks, sort of head that direction, and because they'll have the money to put more into a more sophisticated piece of hardware. And of course you're going to have your gaming platforms, but I think what's really going to change things, and what I really anticipate, is more so the mobile device becoming the main interface. I think it was Samsung, I last read, is trying to develop a 10K phone, 10K screen, which sounds ridiculous until you think about the fact that when you look at VR through your phone, you're cutting your resolution in half. And ultimately what this means is that you can have 4K per eye, and you can get a 4K image on your phone. And of course, once it's on the phone, then it starts getting cheaper, things get faster, all that. I mean, it's just what I anticipate is going to be going. And then also, that's just kind of where I want to go. I just want to go in VR because my background is in 3D, so I'm pretty comfortable and familiar with the way when people use terms like local controller, world controller, XYZ, all these mean things to me that they might not to the average programmer. And there's a lot of really cool potentials for augmented reality and just the VR setup in general that I have really want to get involved in. But problem? I'm limited. My time is limited. You see, that on the one hand, I want to just focus on that solely by itself. On the other hand, I also just want to get started coding and get in the field. I just want to be working in the field and be making more money. That's the thing. I just want to be making more money. And there's something to be said about learning how to just program. Even if it's in a different language, you're still learning how to program and getting your chops up to date. I also want to get in VR because I think I'll be getting in on the ground floor, and the combination of knowing how to use the internet with VR, I think is something that will eventually become a thing. So I'm not jumping straight in there because I want to learn VR, but I also need to really be comfortable with the internet and manipulating websites and manipulating data and calling it, getting things from the server and manipulating the client and all that stuff, so that when I do approach VR and I do get into it more, I've started dabbling, but not enough. And when I do get to that, what I'll be able to do is really sort of think about how can I reach the server, because that's the thing that I anticipate. Like the thing is that we are limited in our scope, thinking that everything is going to be limited right now to what's locally on the phone, right? It's an app you downloaded, so whatever. But that's not really where things want to go. People don't want to keep downloading apps. People want to ultimately be able to get onto the server. You know, I think Pokemon Go, although it failed at certain points with the server, it sort of made that, it sort of showed that, like, people want things to not be stored on their phone locally, right? People have accounts linked to their name and all that. So I need to be familiar with how some of that works so that I can go ahead and get into the VR space for the things that I want to build and I want to achieve and help out with. So the next thing, and another thing too, is I'm limited on time. You know, I need to make more money. I'm not making enough money. So I got into coding to help, start getting some real cash, and that's starting, that's beginning, but it's not where I want to be. But it is at least in the field, and making money in the field is good because then I can at least get paid to practice. I can get paid to work and experiment on things. Now, how long will it take you? It really depends on how much time you have free and if you know what direction you want to go. I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't have time. I did not have time. I really wanted to jump straight into C++ or C#, but the time investment is too high up front. The return on, especially coming in from nothing, the return on when I would be able to start applying for work, I thought would just be too long for the needs that I had. I was limited on a number of factors, working on a contract and all these different things, so I had expiration dates. I have limitations. So there's that. Well, what else do we have? If you know where you want to go, and like I said, you're confident that's the route you want to go, the next question is money. Do you have it? Do you have money? Nowadays it's not too extreme that you do not need to spend a lot of money like you did before. You do not need a 4-year degree. Well, it depends. But even if you're learning C++ or C#, if you really want to learn, if you really want to know, there are websites online. There are tutorials online. There are reading references. You name it, you got it online. You can spend a few $100s to a few $1,000s and still out ahead. And it really comes down to you, because the amount of time that you want to invest in it is how fast it's going to turn around. I would say if you're fresh out of high school, or you're in college, or you're doing whatever, and you're living with your parents. If you have very little bills, or you're working a part-time job, I would definitely try and treat it like a full-time job. Definitely try and treat it like a full-time job. And you can definitely acquire the understanding and knowledge you need in a few months. I think so. It definitely would take you less than a year. Depending on how low the level language you're trying to go. If you're trying to learn something like Python or Ruby, I think you'll be good in just a few months. If you're learning websites, yeah, you're gonna be fine. You know, if you're trying to learn something like C+ or C# or Java, you know, once again, I still think you only need a few months, maybe a few more months, but you'll be up and running in a very short time, you know. And you have the opportunity to do that all yourself, by yourself, save a lot of money. If that's something that doesn't appeal to you, or you don't think you have the diligence to go ahead and stick with it, another option is a boot camp, which I would also recommend, because I've seen good things, I've heard good things, and you can't argue with the fact that they will also help aid you in finding a job upon its completion. As far as price goes, they're still cheaper than college, they're still much faster than college, they have job placement, and you know, you're going to become very focused, and you'll be good to go. If you have the time, once again, treat it like a full-time job with overtime. If you can, that would be the way to go. Now, what if you're in my shoes? What if you are working a full-time job? You've got bills to pay. Maybe you got a kid. Maybe you got a family. Maybe you got a lot of bills. You have rent. You have utilities, and maybe you're paying student loans back, right? Because your field changed, because your industry has changed, and just things are different. Well, I gotta tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy. How far do you work? How far away are you from work? I work about an hour away, right? So I kill 2 hours a day commuting, and I have to, because that's what's hiring me, and that's what's available. But what options do you really have? Well, it's not easy. What I did is I got up early in the morning. You know, you want to spend time with your family, and well, I got up early in the morning. I got up between 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30. If I had to sleep in, 5 max. Then I have to leave the house at 6-ish, something after 6. And it can wear down on you. It can wear you down. That's only half of it, right? Because the other half is then you have to start promoting yourself and finding out how to make yourself visible. And that's a whole nother skill in itself, really. But if you really want it, you can apply it for a temporary amount of time. Remember, it's only temporary, it's not forever. But it is hard. You gotta stay motivated. And if you're working a full-time job and you're trying to do boot camp, that's tougher. It's a lot tougher. What I would recommend instead is going to one of the online schools, like Code School or Team Treehouse. That you're gonna be a lot more flexible, Lydia. That you're going to be a lot more flexible on your schedule, work around what works for you, set aside a time during the day where you can put in, you know, at least an hour a day, really, an hour or two a day to just get something out of it, to build and learn something. Sometimes you'll code, and sometimes you'll just listen. Just learn. And then, of course, if that doesn't work either, I really don't know what to tell you. I know you want to spend time with your family, you want to see your friends, but there's 7 days a week. And how many hours a day are you sleeping? If you're sleeping 10, 12 hours a day, I have no sympathy for you. I'm sorry. If you need a solid 8 hours, totally understandable. Can you function on less for a little bit? Can you cut out a Netflix show? Can you cut out an hour of TV? Can you stay up an hour later? Can you wake up an hour earlier? Can you do something small? And it's exponential, right? I mean, yeah, it's only an hour a day, but an hour a day for 1 week is 7 hours of practice. Over the course of 31 days, that's 31 hours of practice. It gets easier. Will it take longer? Yeah. I mean, I would say it took me almost a year. I would say because of my scheduling and just being on my own by myself, it took me maybe about a year. And frankly, it didn't have to. It did not have to. But it's hard. Time is the most difficult thing that you're going to have trying to make this happen. So when you ask me, or you ask anyone, how long will it take? My response to you is a few months of full-time work. A few months of full-time learning, right? When I say full-time, I mean 40 to 60 hours. Yeah, I'm throwing in overtime. So let's say 60 times 3 months, so that's 180. No, that's not right. 1,000. No. 3 times 3 is 9, so 900. So yeah, so maybe like 18,000 hours. 18,000 hours will get you started. Is what it will do. About 2,000 hours. 2,000 to 3,000 hours is what you're going to be required. I would say about 3,000 hours. And yeah, about 3,000 hours should be quite adequate. Maybe 4,000, maybe a little more. But I think once you reach about 3,000 hours, you're at a very solid point. You should have some work under your belt. You have a very good understanding of what's going on. And I've broken it down to hours. And the reason I broke it down to hours is just because that's how long it's going to take. Maybe at some point I should find a way to calculate the exact amount of hours. I wish I had done that in the beginning. Just to actually record the amount of hours it took to get to where I am. But if you're starting fresh and you're just wondering exactly how long it's going to take you, I'm going to say 3,000 hours. And the reason I also get into that 3,000 hour situation is because like these coding camps, they basically treat it like it's a full-time job, and you have, in 6 to 8 weeks, you can somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks, treating it like a full-time job. So about 3 months, you are qualified, and they treat it like a full-time job and then some. So 60 hours a week for 3 months is going to be about that, maybe more. I don't know. I really haven't done the math, and I'm driving, so I can't think in the head. But yeah, it's something to really, really think about and consider. It sounds a lot. It sounds daunting, but I mean that's what you want, right? Like you're here because you want an exact answer. You want an exact number. So I'm giving you an exact number. And if that's scary to you, then look at the options, or consider how bad you really want to learn. I mean, if you don't want to learn that bad, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not for everybody, but that's something that's really seriously to consider. So I'm gonna put 3,000 hours. Maybe I'll reevaluate that later. But to get started, to get rolling, 3,000.